Hello, welcome to the Loney Show. I'm your host, John Maloney. In this episode, don't have regulars because, well, they're doing this Twitter space right now, talking about who knows what. As for our guest, he's from Toronto, Canada. He is the founder and chief explorer of Wayfinders. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mike Birch. Birchich.
Excited, Birchich, yeah. Excited to be here. Great to connect.
Fabulous. So, how's life?
How's life? Ooh, starting with a big one. Um, Overall, pretty good. I just got back from hosting an event in Uganda, one of my Wayfinders events, and it was my third time back to the country, and yeah, just a wonderful experience. I really enjoy going back to a place and deepening the connections that I made there last time, and Uganda is just one of my favorite places on earth, and it's kind of off most people's radars, but to me, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Oh, very good. And what inspired you to create Wayfinders?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been an entrepreneur for 26 years now, I think, and the initial, I guess, motivation behind it, I was with my previous company. I was growing my company fairly quickly. This is going back to about 2015, 2016. And I was growing the company quite rapidly, and I was encountering all kinds of problems with scale that I hadn't encountered before. And I started joining different entrepreneur communities and attending different events. And they I got a lot out of them. I got a lot of interesting information, but the real value I got from those events was the connections that I made with people. And yet most of those events were not really set up in a great way for people to connect. And there was often a speaker on stage, and then workshops, and then another speaker, and then more workshops. There was a lot of information but not a lot of time for connection, and I wanted to create something for entrepreneurs where the focus was on connection. And it started out just kind of taking some of those elements of typical conference. We would still have some workshops, stuff like that, but there'd be a lot of outdoor time and challenges that we do together, and we'd go mountain biking or hiking or something like that, and things that I knew would bring people together. And um, and people really loved it and asked me to do more of them. And so I've kind of expanded that definition of connection to include connecting with oneself, creating opportunities for people to reconnect with themselves, creating opportunities for people to connect with nature and the natural world, and connect with local cultures. And so far so good. People really love the events. They tend to sell out more than a year in advance, and it's deeply rewarding.
Wow, fantastic. And is there something in Wayfinders that it doesn't have yet, but you really want to like put it in there for the future references?
Yeah, good question. I mean, at this point in time, I'm kind of going down that road a little bit. In that, going back a couple of years, I wanted to move away from just these one-off events. They're week and a half long, and this really tight, intense community forms during our time in these places. And then people come back home and they go back to their regular lives. And I wanted to create a structure for an ongoing sense of community, so that there's more connection before and after the events. And I wanted to do that last year, but then because of COVID, postponed a lot of my events, and I ended up having to deliver a lot of events in a short period of time, going back to November of last year, 2022. And then finally, after completing that event, I had some breathing room in the calendar. And so in March of this year, I launched a new community program where we're primarily focused here in Toronto, but there's also some online stuff. And so we have regular get-togethers, we have regular adventure outings, workshops, stuff like that. And so it's just kind of, we're just a few months into that, and it's the beginning of that. But it's kind of fulfilling this goal and this dream I've had of creating an ongoing, enduring community. And so far, it's mostly focused in Toronto, but I am looking at what does that look like if we extend that to other locations around the world. So that's an experiment in progress.
Fabulous. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Hmm. Well, I do love Toronto. I I wouldn't want to leave here just because I have such a, to me, connection and community is such it's kind of the cornerstone of a good life. And it's hard to, I think, just up and create that somewhere else. I will say that Toronto from, about November through April can be a bit tough. Our winters are a little bit tough. And if I were to live somewhere else, it would probably be half of the year when it's cold here, and live somewhere warm, but also somewhere where, it could experience that same sense of community. I will say that other than Uganda, one of my other favorite places in the world is Argentinian Patagonia. And I spent some time there about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a beautiful place. It doesn't get nearly as many tourists as the Chilean side of Patagonia, and there's mountains and beautiful rivers. And I experienced a little bit of that community in this little town called El Bolson, which is south of Bariloche. And I think if I could pick somewhere else to live, it would be, around that area.
Ah, okay, that's nice.
Hmm.
What is there an app that you just hate, but you still use it anyway?
um, I would probably have to say Facebook. Um, yeah, I mean, I've been on Facebook a long time, and I do have, a network of people that I enjoy connecting with on there. I also, I also think it's not, overall, a net negative for the world, just based on their whole model. And they they have to sell ads in order to be viable. And in order to sell ads, they have to keep people on the platform as long as possible. And they've discovered that the best way to do that is serve up content and use algorithms to serve up content that tends to polarize and tends to divide. And I think that's a real net negative for the world. And I also, my kids aren't on Facebook, but they're just, starting to ask about social media and stuff like that. And I want to hold off as long as possible. The studies are all out there, just the negative impacts on mental health, particularly in teens and preteens. Um, and yet, I still find myself on Facebook every day, because a lot of people that I care about who are not, immediately available to me are on there. And I wish there were other platforms that didn't have all the negatives of Facebook, that combined all the positives. And there have been lots of attempts over the years, but it's kind of hard to compete against, a platform with 2 billion users. So yeah, that's the one.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly agree with you on that. There's always going to be lots of flaws with a lot of platforms, but someday there's going to be one platform that's all positive, but so little negatives.
Let's hope.
What's something you tried that you didn't think you would like, but you end up liking it?
What's something I tried? Um, it's a good question. I mean, I tend to try and make myself open to all kinds of experience, and that's I guess that's one of my hallmarks, or one of my character traits that I value most, is just being open to all experience. And so I try not to prejudge things. Um, yeah, something. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. Let's come back. Let's come back to that question. I'll think about
All
that.
right then, sounds good.
Yeah, yeah.
If there was a song for every time you entered the room, what song would that be?
There is um, there is a song that I usually bust out at some point during my international events, and it's a song called "Look Up," and and I want to I want to find the artist. Give me a sec here. Um, it's just one of those songs that just hits you right in the heart, and it's such a beautiful um, a beautiful song, and it's the message, and it's really about it's about this message of just remembering to look up even when things are very difficult, to look up and recognize the beauty around you. And let me see if I can find that for you. I might have that here. Just one sec. I'm trying to find the artist. She's not a very well-known artist, so Joy Oladokun is her name, Oladokun, and her name's Joy Oladokun, and the song's called "Look Up." And yeah, just a beautiful song. I recommend you check it out.
All right then. Fabulous. What's your favorite season?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's summer for sure. I I really like being in my shorts. I like wearing flip flops. I like being outside. Living in downtown Toronto, it's a little bit harder to get outside in the winter, because if you want to get outside and enjoy winter, it's typically an hour drive or more if you want to get somewhere where it's not just slush and gray, where it's actually snowy and wintry. And so it's a little bit more of an effort. I love winter, but I don't live somewhere where it's easily accessible. But in the summer, there's so much amazing stuff to do here in the city, from festivals and whatnot. But also, Toronto is an amazing natural ravine system where you can go hiking, where you can go biking, even canoeing. And anytime I'm outside and interacting with nature, I'm in my happy place.
Sweet. What is the best way to start the morning?
Well, as of late, I tend to get up fairly early, usually around 5:30. I and I love this time of year because the days are so long, and so I can go downstairs and I can go out to my back deck, and within 10 to 15 minutes the sun is coming up, and there's a certain magic in being able to greet the sunrise. And it's quiet, and there's also all kinds of scientific literature around why getting light exposure early in the day is really important. And one of the things that early light exposure does is it raises your cortisol level. It wakes you up, has all kinds of positive ripple effects throughout the day. And so my best way to start the day is start the day getting outside and getting some sunlight if I can, if there is sunlight. But failing that, I usually start the day with some meditation, just a 10-15 minute meditation.
Fabulous. Would you rather not be able to open any closed doors or not be able to close any open doors?
um, yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because for much of my life, my habit has been, both metaphorically and literally, to leave doors open. And so in a physical environment, I'll often move through a door. It could be our front door or whatever, and I'll leave it open. But that also extends, metaphorically, of not wanting to close close down any options to me. And then as I've gotten older and a little bit wiser, I've realized I guess the hindrance in that, and I've realized the power of saying no and focusing on the things that I really do want, instead of leaving all these doors open. I want to come back to that, or there's a real value in just being able to say, no, I'm going to close that door, and this is the door that I actually want to go through. And so I would say I would rather, I don't want to keep leaving doors open, because I've realized the value of closing those doors. And so I guess I'd rather not be able to open closed doors, because I know there are always open doors that I can walk through, and I don't need to focus on the ones that are closed to me.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. If you could host a talk show, who would you have on as your first guest?
Hmm. I While I was in Uganda last week, we one of the one of the one of the participants shared with me an audiobook that she was listening to, and and I'm trying to remember. So it was written by a woman named Dr. Gladys, and I can't remember her last name. It's a fairly long Ugandan name, but she is Uganda's first wildlife vet, and she has spent a lot of time living with the gorillas and the chimpanzees and doing doing health in the jungle. I actually reached out to my one of the people I was working with Uganda and said, "What are the chances of um, getting this woman to come deliver a talk to our group?" And the reply came back and said, "Well, she's in the UK on a book tour right now. She's unavailable." But then a couple of days later, the reply came back and said she's actually going to be in Kampala when you guys return there. And so when we flew back to Entebbe, which is the airport next to Uganda, Dr. Gladys actually came and delivered a talk to our group, and she was just so engaging, and it was. And the work she does is incredible. She does a lot of conservation work, but she also opened up, she opened up this wonderful coffee shop that we had that talk to, where all the proceeds go to support gorilla conservation. She looks at wildlife conservation in the larger context of what is happening with the humans around these things and in the entire ecosystem, and she has this wonderful kind of approach at looking at problems from a much broader perspective rather than our typical sort of reductionist way of looking at tiny isolated aspects of a problem. And she's just a wonderfully engaging woman. She's and she, as a woman growing up in Uganda, the odds were so stacked against her ever becoming a vet or becoming a wildlife vet. And she's a wonderful example of perseverance, of inspiration. And everybody who was at that talk came away really inspired by her. And I would love to, we only had about 45 minutes with her, but I would love to spend longer with her and help her spread her message, which is just such a wonderful one.
Okay, I love it. Have you ever thought about trying out space tourism?
I haven't tried that yet, or haven't thought about that yet. It's still pretty financially unavailable to the average person. Um, Not that my customers are average people. My events tend to be on the expensive side, but they're definitely not space tourism expensive. I guess for me, it's like the places that I take my participants to. Um, One of the reasons why the experiences are so rich are because of the cultures that we spend and the people that we spend time with. And so in Uganda, we spent a lot of time with the locals in the area. We spent a lot of time with a community called the Batwa people, who were former hunter-gatherers who were expelled from the forest where the gorillas live now. And it was such a rich and a rewarding experience spending time with those people. And it was perfect example of weaving culture into my events, and why that's so important, because everybody who went to that event came away enriched by those interactions which we had with local people. And space tourism to me just seems like a bit of a novelty, and you kind of go up and it's like, wow, this is really cool. But and I say this from the perspective of somebody who's never done it, so I don't know, maybe it's totally mind-blowing and amazing and it changes you forever. It's only interesting to me insofar as I use travel and I use my events as an opportunity to make an emotional and hopefully lasting impact on people, one that will inspire them, change their lives for the better. And if that can be achieved through space tourism, then that's great. But otherwise, it seems like tremendous use of resources for what is now just a bit of a playground for the rich and famous. But maybe in the future it'll become a little more meaningful than that.
Okay, I can see that. What's your favorite quote?
Um, there, I'm gonna have to look up the source. Um, the source of this quote. I keep getting his his name wrong, but the the quote is, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." And I think it's been attributed to Joseph Campbell, who's the author of the hero's journey. Um, but it's also been attributed to other other people. Anyway, the source doesn't really matter, but the quote points to the fact that um, the riches in life, the most rewarding things in life, are to be sought within, and sometimes those places within us that we need to go to are the hardest places to go to, but that's where the real reward is, in facing up to our demons, facing up to our regrets, our fears, all these kind of things. And the way out is the way through, as they say. And so that's why I love that quote. And to me, it's been very valuable in my life, in recognizing, like, where is it that I've been afraid to go? And often those places are the most rewarding. So the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek.
Okay, very good. If you could see one movie again for the first time, what would it be?
Hmm. Probably my one of my favorite movie going experiences as a child was going to see The Empire Strikes Back, the second Star Wars movie. And my cousin and I went, and we lined up for, I don't know, I think about 7 or 8 hours, so that we could be first in line. And I remember that excitement of standing in line and waiting for the movie to enter. And I can't think of any movies since then where I've had that same sense of anticipation. Um, and part of that was just wrapped up in me being a child and being with my older cousin. But I think I would love to be able to see that movie again for the first time, and have that same sense of excitement.
Hmm. Yes, I agree. I always loved Star Wars, and I wanted to see it for the first time again. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Hmm.
This is a question from the top of my head. Have you ever thought about a world that is nothing but gardens?
Uh, have I ever thought about that? I can't say that I have. Um, do you mean like manicured gardens, or I tend to be drawn more to natural and wild places. And so when you say garden, I think of more natural gardens, like the jungle I was just in last week, which is maybe another type of garden, but it's a wild garden. And that to me is very very appealing, because so many of our wild places are being destroyed, and the number of wild places is shrinking, and habitat is shrinking. And um, yeah, I would like to think that over the coming years and decades, we can start figuring out how to reclaim some of these wild places so that they start expanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Definitely a dog person. Yeah, we have a 6-year-old golden doodle, and she's amazing and very affectionate and just offers so much. And I've never had a cat, but I've certainly been around a lot of cats. I don't see cats providing the same value that dogs do.
Hmm. All right then.
Hope I haven't offended any cat people.
No, no, it could be worse, to be honest. What fictional item do you wish you owned in real life?
Fictional item. Um, hmm. I'm trying to think about some of the movies that I grew up with, and what are some of the items in those movies. Um, I think a lightsaber would be pretty cool.
Oh, yes, that is a classic. Would you rather sleep on the wall or sleep on the ceiling?
Um, I'm not sure how I would sleep on either of those things, but sleeping on the ceiling could be pretty cool, I guess.
Yes, I agree. By sleeping on the ceiling, you can pretty much have a lot of floor space, and you can always know who walks in without them even seeing you when they first walk in. So yeah, there's lots of benefits. What animal or plant do you think should be renamed?
Hmm. What animal or plant? Um, I really have to think about that one. Um, Nothing's coming to mind. I'm gonna have to pass on that one. Sorry.
That's all right. I gotta pass with a lot of things. What's the most useful thing you own?
My, I guess, I mean, this isn't really something I own, but it's certainly something that's mine, which is just the network of people that I'm connected with, um, whether it's friends or whether it's business connections or whether it's my members and my customers. I invest a lot of time in my network and the people I'm surrounded with, and I think I could lose everything else in my life, and just by virtue of the people around me, I feel like I would be okay and I could rebuild. Whereas if I lost that network, there's nothing else in my life that would replace that.
Ah, all right then. What improved your life quality so much you wish you did it sooner?
Well, I guess this builds on my previous answer. Is Over the last 10 years, I've been very intentional about nurturing the relationships in my life, and again, from friends to business to acquaintances, you name it. Um, and I didn't always bring that same intentionality to it. I tended to view my relationships sort of accidentally, like these are the people in my life, and we'll either stay together or we won't. And then I realized that I could be very intentional about it. I could be very intentional about creating new connections. I could be very intentional about nurturing the connections that I have to deepen them. And so I'm now very intentional about whom I want to spend my time with, how I want to spend my time, about staying in touch with people, about nurturing those connections, and um, it's really led to a much richer life.
All right then. And there's another question that's popped out of nowhere. Have you heard of a drink called banana friche?
Banana what?
Banana friche.
I've not. Can you explain it?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of like a mix between a smoothie and a milkshake. Like the texture wise, it's both merged together and has a banana flavor, obviously, because it's banana something.
Sounds delicious.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it comes in other flavors. However, banana was the starting point for this new friche kind of type drink, and the rest, they say, is history.
Sounds great. Well, hopefully I'll encounter one soon.
Yes, hopefully. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Mike, talking about Wayfinders, your travels, your exploration, and a lot of things. It's been great.
Wonderful chatting with you as well.
Oh, yes. And until next time, stay tuned for more.